Well, we have trailer for boy, which is all I wanted.
A scion of permanence?
Imbibitor Lunae, successor of the Azure Dragon.
Hey.
Commander of the clouds and the rain. Tasked with watching over the ambrosial arbor. In reckless arrogance, invoked the transmutation arcanum.
Okay.
Guilty of
Something to look at later.
punishable by death.
Boy. Hell yeah. Look at that.
Mind to bear. Fantilia, if you wish to obstruct me, you'll have to do better. You're flawed.
Okay. So the idea is it's his dragon swirling in the waters.
Celestial dragon.
Symbolic thing. Fair enough. Because you can see the shadow of a massive dragon.
Now presume redemption is within your grasp.
Hey.
To fight for a new life. Delve hidden moon, world cleansing dragon.
Whoa, alright.
Do you really think you have a choice this time? I'm waiting.
So, there's not a whole lot to glean, aside from he actually admits what the sin is, so we can actually check exactly what it is. It's like we knew it was theft of immortality, or at least that's what we thought, so it's likely something very relevant. Also, we did glean a little more. Commander of the Clouds and the Rain. So it seems to imply that the Azure Dragon is the one that does that, meaning each of the dragons fundamentally have different capabilities. So when we eventually come across the other High Elders or their incarnations or reincarnations, they're going to be capable of different things, and that's neat. Though I am curious what the range of their abilities could realistically be, since the Vidyadhara as an entire species are implied to have come from the waters of another planet. Like, the water that Dan Heng part is from their original home that they ended up kind of too weak to continue living in once the permanents died. It's implied that they lost all their powers because originally they were able to kind of mess with the life in that planet to fit them, and that just stopped being the case when the permanents died, so they were kind of being outranked. Meanwhile now, they still have this incredible control over water, but it seems to be likely that each of them will function differently in how they do so. And their tasks will obviously be different, because we know there are different treasures on each of the Xianzhe ships, 3 of which were lost. We know one is a moon out of the remaining ones.
Clouds in the rain. Tasked with watching over the ambrosial arbor. In reckless arrogance, invoked the transmutation arcanum.
So, like, I'll look into it later on exactly what the transmutation arcanum is, because we now have an exact term for what he has done as a sin. Which is good. It's more info that we didn't have before. We assumed he stole immortality. Now we have an exact name. Whether or not it's mentioned in in-game lore is another story. But I sure as hell will try and find out. Lots of dragon illusions. Lots of them. And I've heard people question on if Dan Heng is very free-to-play friendly because of his demand for skill points. That's gonna be the question, isn't it? All I know is I'm getting him because I like him. And I'm getting Jingliu because I like her as well. I will make them work. It doesn't matter if they're good or bad for the account, really. It's like other characters I would eventually want is if March gets a 5-star variant, then her. If May gets an XP, like how Bronya's had 2 of them, then I'll want that. Same goes for Kiana. I want Himiko, but I don't want to use the guaranteed pull on it because I can imagine that battlesuit / character coming home after like a failed 50-50. Meanwhile, I do actually need a healer like Bailu. I need a better healer than Natasha. Natasha's not cutting it. Hwa, if she gets an XP. It's just... There's a lot of characters I know I want, whether it be for lore reasons or for the sake of the character. So I'm kind of indifferent on it. I know that if he's as greedy as people think he's gonna be really hard to build. I imagine Mono Imaginary is gonna be the best team comp for this boy. Considering Silverwolf kind of makes any elements team comps really easy to sort around them. But the issue is, Lucha, to my knowledge, based on using him as a co-op character from someone obviously that I've got added, he's not skill point hungry, but Welt is. Yukong, I'm not sure. I'm currently building her in prep for Dan Heng because of her skill to buff imaginary damage. That's kind of indispensable. But that skill point hunger is going to make it kind of impossible to auto the team while the AI is as smart as it is now, which isn't obviously a killer or anything. It's just, I think, like me, a lot of people do their grinding usually on auto battle because there's really no need to not. If it takes too long, then it's going to make him less used. It means it actually requires paying attention to the game in order to use him, which I don't think most people who play the game do for most of the tasks in the game. It's like for daily grinding, I just auto everything. That's not a lie. I have no reason to. I can passively do other things while I just direct the game to do the things I need it to. That saves a lot of time. I don't like that in games like Genshin I have to manually do tasks that I don't find interesting daily. That's why at times I completely don't do dailies, because it gets boring. Same goes for Honkai Impact 3rd. I don't think it's a bad thing to do, but I think that if you're playing the game and it doesn't feel like you're actually playing it, that's a problem. A game's meant to be enjoyed. So it's one of those moments where auto-playing kind of takes away the sense of how you're using the game isn't the way it's like intended to be. But I don't find grinding for artifacts very fun. If anything, usually I find it really, really annoying because, because of the focus on this game, like, there's no free slot like there was in Genshin, and Honkai Impact 3rd didn't really have this issue at all, aside from getting stigmatas, which is more expensive financially, but it takes a lot less time than this. So, when we're trying to sort out sets within this game, we don't have the freedom to not have the right stats on the right bits of gear. And farming for that takes ages. Like, I extensively have farmed for my characters. I've pre-farmed potential sets for Dan Heng. Both Wastelander and Wild Wheat have both been pre-farmed. More so Wastelander, because I'm going to try and use him with Welt, because he'll get the buff to crit damage and crit rate from any affliction with the imaginary status, which I think is a really good bonus to get. just, it sets him up for competing with someone else for skill points, and I won't be getting this boy's Lycone because I don't have enough time to save for that. Well, to get that and also save for Jingliu, which really sucks, but that's realistic. Like, I'm probably going to have to spend money to get Jingliu's Lycone. I can't afford to get this boy's as well. So he's probably going to end up with the freebie one. And I'm going to try get Clara's from the store, because you can get that for the Starlight currency. So it kind of sets up this awkward moment where this boy's kind of free to play friendly, in the sense of you don't really need his Lycone to make him ridiculously good based on what we know this guy can do. Just god damn skill points are not... It sets up this awkward moment for team compositions, because you're gonna either have to manually pay a lot of attention to how this boy is running, or you're going to have to set up teams in a very certain way in order to even auto him. It's like, for me, this will be a team that I use for things like Memory of Chaos, where I have to manually pay attention to the game anyway. Meanwhile, I don't think this will ever be the team that I use for autoing. It'll be definitely the team I use for killing Fantilia, because imaginary. Just, even in the case of that, I don't know if it'll be better DP. Like, it'll probably be better because it's hitting weaknesses, but I don't think it... Like, my current team's not failing Fantilia runs or having trouble with Fantilia runs because of its DPS. It's having trouble with Fantilia runs because of the healer. The fact I don't have Lothar and I only have Natasha really hurts my account when it comes to bosses like this one. And that's why in the future I need to get Bailu probably forced to come home from Standard, because she will fix that problem immediately upon arrival and being set up. I've pre-farmed gear to set up another healer, so I have 2 main healers on the account. It's just a matter of getting there. I'd love it if Lynx was on bloody this boy's banner instead. That would have been greatly appreciated, but they're not giving it to me. So all I have as an option is to wait and hope that she comes on a banner that I'm able to roll for, or that I get incredibly lucky on Standard or in the shop. Because I do want Lynx. Lynx sounds incredibly good. But it's just... This is kind of rambling in a way, but hopefully the discussion point makes sense. I'm not the sort of person who likes to advise people on how they spend their money and how they go for the characters, because to me, if you're not going for the things you enjoy, then you're playing the game wrong. But I also don't think that people should spend a ridiculous abundance of money on things like gacha games. But I also want the developers to be supported, so it's one of those. I think that's a personal decision that anyone can make. I think that if you like the story enough, like I do, you will probably like Dan Heng, and you'll probably just want him because he's a very, very good boy. So I think that reason is fine enough to pull a character, because that's why I'm doing it, and realistically this won't really benefit my account. I just want the boy to come home because I like him. Just like, I think Jingliu will benefit my account, but at the same time I could build Yangjing and I'd realistically have a nice DPS. Probably not as good as one, just because I think Jingliu's gonna be nutty, because it's Jingliu. I'd be surprised if she was bad. So it's one of those where it's personal preferences dictating over significance to account. Same goes for Kafka. If you're not pulling on the characters you really like and you think you'll regret it, and it's not hurting you, then I don't see a reason why not to. I do hate the fact that all of the banners so far have been really bloody stacked since the game came out. and borderline unskippable in some cases. Like, Silverwolf wasn't skippable in my opinion at all. Her banner was basically a requirement in order to set up optimal team comps. Meanwhile, and Lurch, I'd say, kind of is the same. In order to do this boss, you kind of needed him, because the other healer that is available in the game just is not going to cut it, and doesn't cut it. So that stings. I hope that that will never be a problem again with future boss releases, where your healing or your shielding just isn't good enough in order to do the boss.